Hello, JMU Nation. Dave Thomas, the radio voice for JMU football and men's basketball. Pleased to be spending some time with a former Duke who achieved accomplishment at the NFL level. We're spending some time with a guy that really needs no introduction, but hey, it's fun to say his name anyway. Arthur Moats. Don't cross the moats. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, baby? I am doing well, man. Blessed to be here. Always a blast being able to jump on and talk, JMU, anything with you guys. I mean, let's be real, man. That's a place that's always in my heart.
Well, let's start first with your family. Hope everybody's doing well. How was Christmas for you and your folks there?
Yeah, man, Christmas was really well. A lot of times it's easy to complain. It's easy to talk about everything that's transpired from a negative sense. But for us, man, we really just focused in on the family time, the quality time. And I mean, we even got a white Christmas, it's a surprise snow on Christmas Day, man. It was just magical. Just being able to, like I said, connect with the family on that type of level and then have the scenery perfect on top of that, man. So yeah, me and the family, we definitely enjoyed the holidays.
As I was thinking about questions for this conversation and thinking about you and your family, the pandemic's been tough on everybody. We've talked to all the folks that have been on about the differences and the difficulties of the pandemic. For you in particular, you give back so much. You do so much service, not just you, but your family. You've not been able to do as much of that. How has that affected you not being able to get out there and be a part of the community like you're accustomed to?
Yeah, that's the part that sucks the most. We're very hands-on in our approach, especially as it pertains to nonprofit stuff, and we deal with at-risk kids in terms of when we work with the Ronald McDonald House Charities, when we do some of the stuff with some of the elderly people as well. So that definitely put a damper on us, but we had to find alternatives. So granted, we're not the biggest fans of just sending dollars without being able to show up and actually be there. But we understood this year it calls for that type of situation. So it's been a lot more of the donation from a monetary standpoint, just helping these different charities out from a funding standpoint, because that was a big blow that a lot of them did not expect or anticipate. So being able to help them in that from that standpoint was huge. And then from there, man, just the waiting game, hoping that by the spring or summertime, things are starting to get back closer to normal. Obviously, we have a vaccine that's out now, so that should hopefully help. And that's kind of how we're taking this approach, man. But just like in anything in life, you got to make the best of your surroundings, make the best of your scenarios, and you have to be able to adapt. So that's kind of how me and my family approach the whole philanthropic standpoint, in the middle of a global pandemic.
Now, Arthur Moats has played on national television. You've played in front of thousands of people. How did that equate to Arthur Moats, the homeschool principal and teacher?
No, listen, a funny thing, man. When we decided to do the virtual schooling, we were under the perception that that's going to be easy. We're not going to really need to be involved. It's more so just set it, forget it. The kids got this. Until we realized that, yeah, our whole morning, first half of the day, we're essentially in class. So I've been learning kindergarten, math, and language arts. I'm very good at eighth grade algebra two for way better this time around as a 32-year-old than the first time around. Just throwing that out there, not to pat myself on the back. And then my wife, man, she is fluent in let's see, second grade English along with beginner level Spanish. So hey man, we're becoming well versed in every element that you could think of from a grade school standpoint. But the one thing that I do enjoy the most about it is just the one-on-one time that we get with our children and just being able to connect with them in various ways. If my strong suit is more numbers than math, well, that's what I get to help the children with, and vice versa with my wife. But more importantly, we feel like we have such a better understanding of our children's learning style, along with what they're doing well and what they're struggling in. We're just more aware of it now. Whereas in the past, man, when they're going off to school, you might get a progress report, a report card, you might see a homework assignment, but it doesn't keep you as involved. So there are their pros and cons to it as well.
Let's talk about your playing days. And for those who haven't heard the story, being drafted, hearing your name on draft day, walk us through the last couple of days leading up to that point and then what it was like to hear your name.
Oh, absolutely, man. It was a crazy just situation and circumstance surrounding it. Obviously, coming from JMU, and you got to think this is JMU 2009 timeframe. So even though we were successful, we hadn't won multiple national championships just yet. We weren't hosting college game day just yet. We weren't constantly having guys either drafted or signing free agent contracts just yet. It was still guys, but it was a small number. So once I go through the whole phase of winning the Buck Buchanan Award, going through the combine, having my pro days and things like that, remember just a couple of days prior to the draft, Mel Kiper talking about me, and me, Mike Carson, Dorian Brooks, Sam Daniels, all guys during that same time frame, man, just hearing him talk about me, seeing my highlights on ESPN, and we're all just going crazy because this isn't something that was common for us at that time. This wasn't something that was common for FCS players. So, man, it's just like you get so excited about it and you hang on to every single thing that they tell you. And then the draft actually happens, and you've heard the Mel Kipers and the Todd McShays talking about where you're projected to go, talking about what you could do, your strengths and weaknesses. And from there, man, it's just that emotional roller coaster on draft day. Man, of you're supposed to go in the third round, but you don't. You're supposed to go in the fourth round, but somebody gets taken before you. You're supposed to go in the fifth round, and now you're absolutely losing your mind. But then that sixth round happens and you get these phone calls. For me, I was fortunate that I had multiple teams contacting me back to back. I mean, from the New York Giants saying that they wanted to draft me in the end of the sixth round, to the Falcons saying they were going to trade back into the draft to that round to get me, and then the Buffalo Bills actually being on the clock and selecting me. I mean, it was very fortunate that it worked out the way it did. But man, you talk about an emotional roller coaster. You talking about being on top of the mountain, talking about being 6 feet in your grave, and then coming back to the mountaintop. I experienced all of that in a span of a week, man. It was nuts.
Tell us about how you approached that first season in Buffalo. As you said, being from a smaller school, so to speak, what was your mindset? And then when you find out you've made that roster, to talk us through that process.
Yeah. So first off, coming from JMU down, a 757 guy, Portsmouth, Virginia, my whole just thought of New York was New York City. I didn't know another style of New York existed. I thought everything was big city, bright lights. So as I get drafted to Buffalo, and I'm forgetting that I even took a visit to Buffalo, I look over to my uncle. I say, "Where is Buffalo even at?" He tells me it's in New York. So my mindset is, I'm going to New York City, baby. Big city, bright lights. Let's buy a fast car, man, because we don't need to worry about snow. It's New York, baby. We don't get snow like that, not in the city. So I'm good. And then I show up rookie minicamp in May and we get snow. And I'm like, whoa, where am I? So that was the first thing. And then from there, mind you, at JMU, I was a DM, right? 4'3", hand in the ground guy. Even in high school, hand in the ground guy. And I get to Buffalo and they're like, not only are you going to be playing stand-up linebacker, but you're playing inside linebacker. It has zero to do with rushing the passer. You're going to be in coverage and stopping the run, something that I had never did before. So for me, man, that first training camp, I tell people to this day, that was the worst training camp I've ever had in my life. I'm talking rec ball, high school, didn't matter college, didn't matter what year of the NFL. That was by far my worst training camp. I've never felt that I wasn't good enough to make a team. And literally, I remember having a conversation with my parents probably after the second preseason game. And I remember telling them, like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna make this. Like, I think I suck right now. Like, and they're like, I mean, are you not fast enough? I'm like, no, I'm plenty fast. They're like, are you not strong? And I'm like, no, I'm plenty strong. They're like, I mean, what is it? Like, I can't get this playbook. I'm like, what do you mean cover three? I only have two safeties. How can it be cover three? What do you mean cover four? I don't have enough guys. Like, so just that whole emotional roller coaster then of you go from being the player of the year at the FCS level, getting drafted, being, the big man on campus, to now I'm fighting for a roster spot, trying to secure my job and ultimately not be an embarrassment. So it was a crazy situation, but something that they told me that it always stuck with me. They simply said, man, just think about the work that you put in to get here. You wouldn't be there if you didn't belong. They understood when they took you that, hey, you might have a little bit of a growing pain, right? A learning curve, but they're invested enough in you. They believe in you. Go out there and play your game and don't worry about the stuff that you can't control. Don't worry about personnel decisions because you don't make the decisions anyways. So once they told me that, and I really sat down and thought about it, it took a lot of that pressure off of me. And from there, I was able to just go out and play and have fun. And I ended up having a lot of success that preseason. Ended up leading the league in tackles that preseason, and from there securing a roster spot. And obviously, we know the rest is history. But it really started with that conversation, man. Because yeah, I was definitely second guessing myself for a little while there.
How different were you from your first year in Buffalo to your first year in Pittsburgh? You'd had some time in the league, you'd
Mm-hmm.
matured and grown up a little bit. How different were you as a player and as a man?
Man, night and day. It's not even close. I tell people all the time, 21-year-old me was a better athlete. 24, 25-year-old me would run circles around that guy, though. I was just so much more developed. I had saw so much more football by then, too. Yeah, I think my rookie year, I told you this was my first time playing that position. Whereas by the time I got to Buffalo, by the time I get to Pittsburgh, this is going on my fifth year. I've started, a good amount of games at both inside linebacker and outside linebacker. I've made plays. I've played in some big time games. So my overall confidence and belief in myself was just different then. And then when you talk about off the field, I mean, my rookie year, I'm a single, fresh out of college young man. It was a little bit of a different vibe. But now, you take it to Pittsburgh. I'm married. I got kids. I got a family. So it's a lot more responsibility, a lot more pressure, and a lot more pressure to succeed. Early on, you got to think about this as a rookie. If I would have got released, right? If I wouldn't have made the team, who does that affect? Just me. It would be how I could view myself as a failure or a success, depending on how I want to take it. But it's not going to have ramifications that ripple down to anyone else. Whereas when I got to Pittsburgh as a husband, I had a young child, I had one on the way. If this doesn't work out, this could be damning not only for me, but for my family and my children as well. So you talk about a different level of pressure. Showing up to Pittsburgh, it was kind of like when you hear that saying, man, I forgot who had the quote, but man, you show up and you burn the boats because we're not going back. All we could do is press forward. All we could do is succeed. If we don't succeed, man, you just got to kill me. I don't have another option. That became the mentality then. And that ultimately helped me throughout my years in Pittsburgh. And then obviously that last year in Arizona.
You did spend some time in Arizona, but really you've been fortunate to play for two of the most rabid fan
Oh
bases.
man.
I mean,
You
it
say
doesn't matter where
two.
you
You say
go.
two. I say it's three because JMU is up there as well, man. I say I was very fortunate because there's people, whether it's collegially or professionally, that never get the opportunity to play in front of these type of fans where they absolutely adore you, worship you, man. They wear the colors Tuesday at 1 o'clock in March. It doesn't matter. Like they're gonna be decked out. Like I love that. It's something that I always say I was so fortunate to experience at multiple stops throughout my playing career because a lot of people, they like I said, they don't understand what that feels like. And I'm very fortunate because it helped me, all three fan bases have helped me so much in my transition. You talk about when you have rabid fan base, when you have communities that rally behind you and support you the way that they supported me, man, it helps when you write a book. You know you're gonna have that support. It helps when you want to go out and start your own media platform. Man, they have you and they're gonna support you from that standpoint. So to me, man, like I said, I'm just very fortunate and humbled by all that support that I get.
When the Steelers and the Bills play one another,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a shirt that has half one side and half the other side? How do you watch that game?
So for me, as you can see in my office, I got my JMU, got my Pittsburgh, got my Bills, right? Got the Cardinals back there as well. It's in order though. As you can see, JMU is the first helmet because JMU is my pride and joy. That's where, I became me. I mean, I got that opportunity. Then you see Pittsburgh, because for me, Pittsburgh is when I came here, I was at a different stage. It really took me and catapulted me to a whole nother level, both playing and off the field that I could never imagine. And then from there, you got Buffalo, right? Because that's where I started. That's why I kind of got my legs under me at the NFL level, and then Arizona because that was like the retirement party, right? It was like, hey, we're gonna go to Pittsburgh West, get you a nice little, compensation package, and after that, you go on your way. So that's my route in order. So if Pittsburgh is playing, I'm rooting for Pittsburgh. If Buffalo is playing versus anyone other than Pittsburgh, I root for Buffalo. If the Cardinals are playing against anybody other than Buffalo and Pittsburgh, then I root for the Cardinals. So that's my hierarchy, and that way it keeps me from having to flip flop and feel uncomfortable at times.
Hopefully, Bill's Mafia doesn't have your address to send your hate mail. So
But
now,
they know I love them. And that's the thing too. Like I said, I feel like they respect it more because I've been able to lay out the guidelines to it. I think if I would have tried to maneuver through this thing, tiptoeing both sides and really not letting people know where I stand, that's kind of where you get into a lot more trouble. I feel like when you're transparent with the people, though, just like in life, if I'm transparent with you, we could work out. Either you're gonna take it or you're gonna leave it. But if I kind of try to hide it and sneak around, now we're gonna have some issues.
both of these teams look like they're obviously heading into the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
There are former JMU players on teams that are going to be into the playoffs. Some
Shout
of
out
them
to
for the
Dean Marlowe, baby.
some of them for the first time. What's the
Yeah.
difference in those regular season games, and then when you get into the field has shrunk down now, and this is the NFL playoffs? Talk about that transition.
Absolutely, man. It's a big difference when you're talking about the speed. We tell people all the time, you got three different speeds and tempos that you will experience as an NFL player. I was fortunate; I got to experience three. I've experienced three of them. I didn't get to experience the bonus one though, right? So the first speed is your preseason speed. Now, preseason speed is probably going to be your slowest. It's faster than college, but it's still not like a regular season game. The speed, the intensity is still down a little bit, solely because with the 90-man roster, you're going to have at least, 40 guys, maybe even 50 that aren't necessarily NFL caliber players, but they're there for camp purposes, right? And to fill out the roster spots. So that's why the speed and the intensity is down a little bit, just because those guys aren't capable necessarily of giving you what you need. Then you get to the regular season and that speed jumps up. It jumps up because now you got your best 46 players on that roster going out there. So you see the talent is different, but then you're also playing for playoff spots. So the intensity is there, and it can vary at times throughout the season, obviously, if you're on a contender versus not being on a contender. But that's the second speed. Then that third speed is when the playoffs hit. And now it's a whole nother ball game, because not only is it the best 46, but now it's the best 46 on the best 16 teams in the NFL. So this is a totally different pool of players that you're pulling from right here. When you put them into that competitive atmosphere, it's going to ultimately take it to a whole nother level. And then obviously the bonus one is the Super Bowl. I can only tell you stories about it. I personally didn't experience it though. But from what I've heard is it's even a whole nother level there, because now it's the best two teams and it's the finale. There is no tomorrow. And everything at stake. You're going to get the best of the best. Guys run so much faster. They play so much harder. Everything is accelerated and multiplied and magnified because of the game. So, yeah, when you talk about the different levels of postseason versus regular season, you will definitely feel the difference. I mean, I remember I was fortunate, like I said, hosting playoff games at the NFL level. Man, you feel that energy in the city. Man, you're driving into the stadium, you're seeing these different TV crews, you're seeing the who's, the A teams when it comes to analysis, like the broadcasters and stuff. Man, you can, like I said, you just feel that buzz, and it's different. It's hard to explain it, but it's a big time difference, man.
This may be an impossible question to ask or to answer, but I like to ask it anyway. And
All right,
generally,
all right.
and generally we get, my camaraderie, I miss the locker room, the bus rides. I really want to know the truth from your time at JMU and your time in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a game that stands out from each the most to you, where when you think back to your performance
Easily.
or a team performance, what are those games?
Absolutely. At JMU, I have two. It would have been, let's see, this would have been the 2008 season. 2008, we host App State. This is the same year, that App State is going on. I think they had already won two national championships. They had just beat the number 5 ranked Michigan team that same year. We're hosting them in Harrisonburg after we got knocked out of the playoffs by them the year prior, controversial late ending of the game. So you think about all the stakes. This is Armani Edwards at quarterback, multiple Walter Payton award winner at that level, draft pick guy as well. And we're down. I think 21-3 at halftime. And I remember, man, us just rallying around, Scotty McGee having a big play. I have a big play. Rodney Landers has a couple of big plays. And we come back and win. And that was my first time experiencing fans rushing the field. And wow, when I tell you that was one of the best days of my life, not just my playing career, of my life, man, to see the students, parents on the field celebrating because they understood how big of a game that was. Then obviously that was the same year we won 12 games in a row and hosted all the way up to the semifinals of the playoffs. I mean, it was just magical that night. A night, like I said, that I will never forget. So that was the first one at the JMU level, and then also we had a playoff game that same year. Quarterfinals was Villanova. First game on ESPN2. I have 3.5 sacks that game, and the commentators talking about me, and it was like, man, the fact that I'm being talked about on ESPN2, I have one of the best games of my career. That was another moment that to me it just always stood out. And then as a professional in Buffalo, man, I think of two plays, two games. Obviously, the Minnesota Vikings game my rookie year, man, I end up having the hit that stops Brett Favre's consecutive starting streak, the Ironman streak at 297 games. The significance around that was crazy. And then my first career sack playing against Joe Flacco, man, Baltimore Ravens. I was a huge Ray Lewis fan. Obviously, I played Joe Flacco when he was at Delaware, had a sack on him there. So to have my first NFL sack be against him as well is something I would never forget. And then in Pittsburgh, man, the two other memories there, playing in the AFC Championship game against the New England Patriots. I mean, even though the game didn't go how we wanted it to go, being in an AFC Championship game, holy cow. Nothing like, wow. They tell me, the guys who were the team, they said the only thing better than that feeling, obviously, is winning it, but then playing in a Super Bowl. And it was just crazy, the suspense, the energy all week building up for that game. Yeah, it was just unreal. And then obviously, a positive note would be my first time winning the division, obviously, was in Pittsburgh. A game that got flexed my 2014 season against the Bengals. And we ended up beating them last game of the year, win the division, my first time winning a division championship at the NFL level, my first winning season at the NFL level as well. So, man, you think about all the significance going on there. It was just amazing. But that's why for me, I'm like, man, I got so many great memories. This is my favorite game at this level and that level. I could go on for hours.
Well, tell us what you're doing now, because you're parlaying your experiences both in Buffalo and in Pittsburgh into more the broadcaster setting now. So what are you up to now?
Yeah, man. I've really enjoyed this transition. I've transitioned into being a media broadcaster. I do color commentary. I obviously called a couple of games for JMU football last year. I have a radio show that I host with on Steeler Nation Radio, Steelers.com, Monday through Friday, 2 hours each day. I also have my own social media platform on YouTube where I have my own podcast. I do film breakdowns, live watch parties and things like that. And I also wrote a book, The Moats Theory of Life, and that's available at moatstheory.com. I mean, it's been a busy transition for me, but I've been able to parlay not only my personal experiences as a player, but also the things that I'm able to see from a bird's eye view, more so from a coach's standpoint, man, being able to put together player experience, but also a keen mind and just an eye for football, and being able to put that together in sentences that people love to hear and love to watch. And I'm very fortunate to have the support that I have in all of those avenues, man. But it's really been a blessing in terms of just being able to transition so smooth, because I've talked to so many people and they talk about how much of a struggle it was for them. And we obviously know the statistics as it pertains to retired professional football players, man. Within 2 years, it's an 80% chance that they're going to file for bankruptcy. So the fact that I've been able and fortunate enough to overcome and beat that odd and statistic, man, like I said, I just want to keep that thing going for me.
What was the most challenging part early on when you made the transition behind the microphone? What were some of the early hurdles you had to cross that maybe you never even thought about when you watch a game and you're listening to guys talk, or you're listening to sports radio and you're listening to guys talk? You never thought about, man, okay, wait a minute, there's setup behind this. What were the challenges you faced?
So that's a good question. And it just depends on which platform we're talking about, right? When it came to me starting my own brand of media, right? My own channels for social media, the biggest thing, it was never having comfort on camera and talking. I've always felt comfortable with that. It was more so the production element, right? Doing it by yourself, where typically when you're with an organization, you don't have to worry about the editing. You don't have to worry about software. You don't have to educate yourself on that. You just get in there, get on the mic, kill it, and leave. So that was the first eye opener to me, and having to realize that, hey, you need help. You can't do this by yourself. So that was the first thing. And then when it comes to the other shows and things that I do, whether it's commentary, whether it's radio shows or TV shows, my cadence, that was another thing. You can have conversations with people off air and you don't realize how fast you talk at times. You don't realize how you might not enunciate well enough. And in a off camera setting, it's okay. But when you're talking about the professionalism and just the mechanics and mannerisms of being on camera, you have to take a little bit more notice to those things. And to me, that was another eye opener. Working with I don't even know what you call them, or I guess you call them a media coach, right? Or a body language coach, an enunciation coach. They teach you and they can point out some of these things, and it really helped me. It humbled me as well because, as an athlete, you're confident. You feel like, man, I could just do this thing. I'm nice with it. And you watch it with the coach and you're like, oh man, I'm terrible. I might be the worst person to ever do this. But then you start seeing yourself improve. You start taking notes. And just like as a professional football player, you put that work in. You try not to make the same mistake twice. And you just keep having good rep after good rep. And when you look up, you're like, man, I've really improved. I've really grown. So those are the biggest things to me that surprised me or that I had to adapt to the most once I transitioned into being a full-time media broadcaster.
Tell us again where we can find your work.
Yeah. So for my book, it's moatstheory.com, just my last name, theory.com. Then for the YouTube content, where you'll be able to find the bulk of my work, whether it's my podcast, my keys to different games, film sessions, interviews, that's available on YouTube at just youtube.com/Arthur Moats 55, just my name and the number 55. Yeah. And then that's pretty much the central location. Obviously, I'm on social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, doesn't matter, Twitter. Just search my name. I'm the one with the blue check.
Last question for you, Arthur, and you've been generous with your time and we appreciate it. I know you and your family get back to JMU as often as you can.
Mm-hmm.
How special of a feeling is it? And is there another place other than Bridgeford Stadium on campus that you have to visit every time you go?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so first off, man, absolutely love going back to JMU. I've been upset actually because of COVID. I haven't been able to check out the new basketball arena, the new convo. I mean, I've seen the videos, I've watched the games on the streams, like I'm loving it. I just can't wait to be a part. I even bought one of the little cutouts that they were talking about, man. I even have two of those. Like, I wanted to be there that bad. Like, I'm like, I gotta be there twice, okay? I'm gonna be there. So, so for me, man, I cannot wait to be back amongst JMU Nation. I mean, it's no better place to be, man. And when it comes to places that I have to hit up when I'm back in JMU, back in Harrisonburg, outside of, obviously, when we think about just campus, I'm like, D Hall is mandatory, especially the new version of D Hall. Let's be real. It's phenomenal. But I still like my local spots, right? So for me, the one place I always got to go is Billy Jack's, right? I'm like, I'm a Billy Jack's guy. You got Jack Browns, you got Billy Jack's. You got to pick a side. I pick my side, all right? I pick my side. So for me, wifey knows once we get to Harrisonburg, we make two stops. One to the hotel, and then after that, we're going to Billy Jack's. All right, we're calling in the order to Billy Jack's ahead of time, so we don't even have to wait. It's a smooth transition. We got a nice little setup going here, man.
Well, I know JMU Nation's awfully proud of you, and a lot of folks follow your work already. But just thank you for taking time out.
Appreciate that, man.
You're always generous with your time and always great insight to not only your time at JMU, but to what it's like to be a professional player. And you give more insight a lot of times than most other folks do. So we appreciate the insight. Best of health to your family in 2021. And we can't wait to see you back at Harrisonburg.
Man, I definitely appreciate that. Always a blast being on the talk with y'all, man. And like I said, I can't wait to be back either. Go Dudes!